just move some stuff around here very quickly. Let me see. I think I had everything in the wrong screen here. Okay. No. All right, so let's see if I share my screen where it's gonna go. I think it's the correct one right there. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, sweet. How is it going so far? I mean, like, is it a little bit too confusing, or am I being a little, it's like I yap a lot during those classes, so I hope you guys are not bothered by that. But I'm gonna try to be a little quieter and work more and talk a little bit less. So today is an important day because today we're actually gonna project our model, our sketches. You probably already did this, it's like the thing about those classes, when you get like the live class, you actually already have access, like, way before that, like to the offline classes. And a lot of people start doing their work based on the offline classes, which is really cool. So, but for people who are actually starting now, or people who are actually eventually going to get this class as an individual class, I'm going to be doing some work about that. So the first thing I'm going to do here, let me just show you something out of curiosity. So control panel. So check this thing out. Remember yesterday I was having that problem moving windows from one monitor to the other one? It turns out it was a setting that I never turned off, and apparently Windows turned it off for me. So under ease of access center here, control panel, ease of access center, the second last here, make it easier to focus on tasks. If you click that thing, there is a shady little setting here that says make it easier to manage window. Prevent windows from being automatically arranged when moved to the edge of the screen. So basically that's what was happening. This thing was off. And then, it's like every time we get to the edge, remember, like it would just like get stuck in there, right? So now I turn this thing on, and all of a sudden magically everything works. So if you get the same problem, just so you know, it's there. So that's one thing that makes me happy, because I'm not going to have to worry about that anymore. So today we're going to be working with ZRep. We're going to project our sketch to the base model, the base mesh we're going to be using. And like I said, like you guys can either come up with your own base mesh or use the one that's available for download at the course page, the virtual classroom in there. But in this case here, I'm going to be using like my recurrent mesh. I can show you how it looks like and all that stuff. So let me just like talk a little bit about the topology first. So if I let me just hide everything. That's the scene we were using so far. Let's do this. Hide this as well. And let me just import the mesh in here. I noticed one thing. I was using this for the Native American mesh model. I noticed that there is something going on. Either there is one edge that there is it's disconnected in there, and it's actually not allowing me to create like a perfect symmetric model. So I'm gonna have to revisit it. And it's funny because I worked the whole month of October, and I started with the previous mesh, so I don't know what happened. Sometimes during export, if you have vertices which are very, very close to each other, for some reason, like sometimes I think Maya merges them during the export. I don't know what happens, but just so you can see here, let me just open so this is like the Native American guy, and I'm gonna open, let's see, this one was saved today, so let's get the ones from last October. So let's get that one. This is kind of like the base mesh I had, like the very, very base mesh, right? Like the super low res one. So in terms of poly count, this guy has only like 17,000 polys, 17,326. And let me just import as well the one I have for my wife, Jessica. So let's see. Jessica OBJ, and then let's get Jessica head. This one here, which is from July, so it's saved in August, this one. So let's get that one. The difference is that there's basically like a rotation in the necking here. And one thing that I was mentioning before, it's like if you want to keep the symmetry of the face and then so you can actually work faster, but then create some kind of like posing. Sometimes it's cool to just like preserve the face in the same position for as long as you want. And then instead of like rotating the face, if you want to create a pose, right, you can actually rotate the neck and the shoulder. It's kind of like a little trick in there. And then when you're rendering, obviously, it looks like the model is actually looking around, but it's actually the face is completely symmetric. You can actually do that as well by spinning. For example, like if you go to the view and you go to camera tools, you have this roll tool in here. So for example, like you can even like, you know, rotate this way. So for example, you can keep the head, completely straight and then simulate that the head is actually tilting to the side and then correct for the rest of the, you know, the head and shoulders in there, the neck and shoulders, sorry. So, you know, a little trick in there, like instead of like rotating the head itself and creating all this trouble trying to track the eyes and eyelashes and all that stuff, you can just do the opposite. So yeah, just like a little cheat. So in terms of the topology here, let's see. Oh no, this is actually the mid-resolution one. Let's see if I can get like the super low res of her, which should be very small actually. Let's see. So that's just head low res. Huh, interesting. 1.83. Yeah, this is the one. Okay. So in terms of poly count, you can see like right there, number of faces, 326. Both have the same amount, right? And all the values in there match. But for some reason, I don't know what's going on with this model here, that in ZBrush, I can actually resymmetry this model. I can totally resim and create new symmetry in there. And this guy here doesn't work. It doesn't find the symmetry, although everything seems exactly the same. So I don't know what's going on. So I might have to use her as the model. But before we do this, let me just show you like in terms of the topology itself. It's not fancy at all, right? You get this, you know, it's like a okay-ish topology, right? Most of the polygons are around this area here, not a lot around here. So eventually I'm gonna have to, you know, create a model that has a better planning. For example, like all those lines in here, I could have like a cleaner version of that. So I don't need all those polygons being wasted in there, right? And same for the ear, I could clean it up. You know, it's definitely not a perfect model by any means. So, and because I'm working just like with stills, I don't quite care that much, right? In her case, I actually distributed things a little bit better when I was doing like, because I was just being a little bit more careful with stuff. But you see, like, it's still a lot of ugly stuff in the back here, but it works for the purpose of, you know, it's like a still. So in terms of the UVs, let's compare those two models here. Because normally what I do, I keep like reusing the same base mesh, right? I just like do my sketches from scratch because I don't want to have contamination, right? It's very easy to simply start with a model like this that already has a lot of structure and everything, and then try to create this model from that model, right? But then the thing is, like, I'm always afraid of contamination, and by that I mean like making the model carry some of the characteristics, you know, it's like the nose shape or whatever, even if it's a slight thing that carries like from one model to another one, it's always bad, you know. It's like, it's almost like when you started from a model and creating another one from that model, it's almost like you get a little lazy, you know, and your eye starts seeing like, oh, the nose, yeah, it looks like the nose. But instead of like creating something from scratch that actually you're just putting more and more observation in there, you know. So just to prevent that, I always start with the sketch from scratch, or from a very rough base mesh, for example, and then reuse the same topology, because I don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to, right? So let's see, like, in terms of the UVs, what we have here. So if you go to Windows modeling editor and then UV editor, let's click in one of those here. Let's see this guy. So in terms of UDIMs, I have 5 UDIMs, right? For her, it's a slightly different, right? Like the model is a different model, obviously. So I have to actually, you know, unwrap things again, just to make sure that conforms to the other model better, right? Otherwise, it's gonna get some stretching going on. But I have for both of them 5 UDIMs. In terms of UDIMs, it's a little overkill right now. I think I could get away with 3 UDIMs. Would be fine for this model. And then the question would be like, why I'm using 5, why, it's like 3 would be ideal, why instead of that, I don't use just like 1 UDIM, or why I don't use 10 of them, right? And the answer is always like, it depends of the final resolution you're trying to export. We already came to the conclusion when I was sculpting this guy here. Actually, not when I was sculpting him, when I was looking at the previous model, right? We look at the Native American guy. And then basically, like, I have 72 million polygons for the model itself, which is head and shoulders like this, capped underneath, right? 72 million polygons. So remember we did some calculations the other day, and just like repeat a couple things here so we can actually fix that information. So in that case, like my 72 million polygons that I have, obviously there's some other numbers in there, but just like round, let's do 72 million, right? So if I divide that by 4, by 4, by 4, by 4, by 4, and by 4. So 17,578. See, like it's close enough, right? I have 17,326. So it's pretty close. So it's probably like, it's a little bit less than 72, I suppose, at the end of the day. So 71 million point something. I could get the exact value here, but we don't need that. So that's basically what I have. So to create something around 72 million polygons, I can start with a model that has about 17.5 thousand polygons, right? So and then let's say we want to calculate like how many UDIMs you're going to need to be able to accommodate all that detail, because we want to make sure that we have enough UDIMs to represent all those HD geometry details. So in this case here, 72 million polygons. Let's see how many polygons we can accommodate, like in each one of those UDIMs in theory, right? So if we are working with 4K maps, so each one of those big squares here, right? Those squares are like 4K maps, let's say. You can actually do 8K maps or whatever resolution you want, but let's just suppose that's 4K. So 4K, which is like 4,096, right? Times 4,096. That's how many not polygons, but points or pixels you have in a map. If you're using 100% of the map, you have like 16.7 million polygons possible in here, right? Like 17.7 million points or pixels in this displacement map, if this was a displacement map. But the thing is, like, we are not using 100% of the aisle, right? We are only using like roughly, I always consider like 50%. I try to put as much stuff as I can in there, but there is always like this big space in there. It might be like maybe like 40%, not 50, but I'm considering 50 and giving a little space for waste in there. So if I'm using 50% of this space, and I know that the maximum is 617.77, I can just divide by 2 here, right? My 50%. And then in theory, if this was a 4K map, I could represent 8.3 million polygons in this UDIM. So if I have 5 UDIMs right now, and I multiply this one by 5, you see I got a maximum of 42 million polygons possible if I'm using 50% of each one of those squares, right? But you remember that I said that I have 71 to 72 million polygons. So that means I would have to either split this into more aisles, like more UDIMs, right? So if I have 41, that means like I would have to have at least like another 4 of those UDIMs, or maybe 5, right? So with that, I would have like 83 or 84 million polygons possible in there, with some to spare, right? So that would be if I'm using like 4K maps. So I would need probably like, I would say like 10 UDIMs at like 50% coverage, right? Now, if your model has like 100 million polygons, you're gonna have to do exactly what I did, the same procedure: divide, and then calculate. It's like, what's the 50% if you're using 50% of the aisle, and then get to the optimal amount of UDIMs you're gonna need. So because I don't want to create more UDIMs in here, I don't want to split this further. I like the layout I have in there. Instead of like going the route of like doubling this, I'm actually being very overkill and using 8K maps instead. So 8K maps here, I have a ton of information, right? So if you have like 8192, which is 8K times 8192, you're gonna get like in each one of those squares, if it's an 8K map, a possibility of having 67 million polygons in each. If it's 50% usage, you're gonna have like 33 million polygons in each one of those if it's 8K. So in my case, if I have 5 of them, I can accommodate here 167 million polygons in those 5 UDIMs. Obviously, I could cut, like I said before, like 2 of them and use just like 3 of them in 8K, or I could grow and have like 10 of those in 4K, and I should be able to accommodate the amount of polygons I need. But I rather have more, it's like polygons available than less. And I like using 8K maps, actually. It's like my computer has a good amount of memory in there, and it never cries for 8K maps. But you have to bear in mind, of course, like if you're using like multiple passes, multiple textures for your model, it's not like just a displacement map, right? Your computer is going to have to load the displacement, the color map, the specular map, bump height, whatever, it's like a hair density, anything that you're going to put in terms of like different maps in there. It's going to start like building up, right? Like this huge list of maps that has to be loaded every time you render something. So that's why I prefer like loading a few maps, even though they are 8K, than loading a bunch of maps that's like 4Ks. But that's just my preference. Ideally, like I said, I would have to reduce at least one UDIM, probably like split this one in, it's like, and then like accommodate and shove it in there, so somewhere like in those 2 maps, and then basically like have 4 of them, right? Would be closer to what I need, like between 3 and 4. So, but that's basically the way I calculate those things. And in terms of layout, you notice that I have like the face split right in the middle, and there is always concern that that's going to cause seams. I rarely see any seams when I do like HD geometry. And when that happens, sometimes there's a problem with the model. The model is not completely symmetrical, or there is something disconnected with the model, or your model, for example, like you have things flipped. So instead of like having the normals facing the correct way, it's facing the opposite way. But in terms of like seams because of the HD itself, if you have a correct model working with no overlap and anything like that, you should be able to export a seamless model out of ZBrush from the multi-map exporter. And if you still have some problems, you can actually increase the number from 4 pixels out of the multi-map exporter to about like 8 to 12 pixels for the bleeding. There's a setting there I can show you guys. That basically what ZBrush does when you get to the edge right here. By default, it copies the color of the last pixel inside of this aisle here, inside of the model itself, and expands that by 4 pixels. So it creates a little buffer, repeating that same color to prevent seams when you basically like connects to the next neighbor polygon in there. But if it's not working, sometimes if you increase like to 8 or 12, that ends up like working and fixing the seam, so that's to keep that in mind. But obviously, with that in mind, you have to make sure that you have enough space between things. So let's say if those pieces are closer than this, imagine that if I expand like 12 pixels this direction from this piece and 12 pixels from this one, they would basically overlap in the middle, right? And then you would have a seam anyway, right? You're probably like you would have something going on. I would not say like in this case here, but if they are really close, they probably like would overlap each other. It's like, so this one would bleed to this one and this one to that one, and you definitely would have a seam right there. But in this case here, I have plenty of room, although it looks small. Has much more than, especially in 8K. In 8K, you're gonna have much more than 12, 24 pixels distance here. You're gonna have a good chunk in there. So in terms of planning of the model, that's basically what it is. Like I said, like the model I saved for you guys, like the one you can download with the rest of the files, it has a similar topology, right? And then not topology, but a similar layout. I believe is also 5, and then you can play with that, but again, like it's not a perfect model by any means. Same with these models I use; they are not perfect, so they always can use some work. So with that out of the way, let's play with those like projecting this stuff. You know, it's like our model or sketch model to a topology that actually works for us. And then the reason I try to reuse model to model like this is that although the albedo color I always paint from scratch, you know, it's like any of those models you start from scratch to paint the color map, all hand painting the ZBrush. Certain maps I don't repaint. Some of the other maps I reuse because they are some of them are very simple to create, like the bump height, for example. But because they are already tried in different scenes, I just like, you know, like let's just bring this because they are very simple maps. It doesn't matter if they stretch or not because they are just like very broad gradients, right? So that's why, you know, it's like it saves me some time if I reuse those models, but it's really up to you guys. Let's go back in here to our ZBrush and let's take a look at the ZWrap. So ZWrap, let's look at the website first. Let's go to Arnold. Let's see, ZWrap. The name of the website is a little funny. It's called Russian3dscanner.com, and those guys are amazing, dude. I mean, like this tool saves people's lives. You know, it's so easy to use, like very fast as well. And if you never use, you can go ahead right there and download for your Windows machine, and that should install in your ZBrush, and you should have like 30 days like for free, right? If you already went through this trial and it's completely expired for you, I can try to find out how many licenses I have available. I don't know if I have like just a few, maybe like 2 or 3, or if I have more than that. I remember like I ended up like giving away to my class of October, but also some people who requested from the previous classes because I put a little announcement, you know, it's like in our Facebook group, and a lot of people claimed those. So I really don't know how many I have left. Maybe just 1 or maybe like 2 or 3, but or maybe a little more. Anyway, but if you never used it, just like get it straight away because it's freaking awesome. The interface is very easy too. So once you have it installed, when you go to ZBrush and you open ZBrush again, you're gonna see under plugins, this little tab in here is gonna be the last one, ZWrap, and then you're gonna have the about in there, and then you start ZWrap. So the first thing you're gonna do, I'm gonna bring my base mesh, which in your case, if you wanna use again, you can use the model I made available. So I'm gonna click this little star in here, and I'm just gonna import one of those models because I know that Jessica's model, I can produce symmetry with it. So I'm gonna go with that because it's a safer bet for me. And let's get the latest one that I saved, which was in August last year. So this one, actually this one, the low resolution one. The naming, I normally, when I export low resolution, I put LR, medium resolution MR, and high resolution HR, just, you know, for my own control in there. So basically, like this is the model with like a toothless wife, hairless wife. And and you see like I have the rotation for the neck in there going on, right? So that might be a little funny. But if ZWrap works the way we want or need, that should actually be fairly okay, actually. So let's just do one thing here. So I have my model. I'm just gonna go to deformation. And if you just click Smart Resim, it should try to create the symmetry. Let's see. So bizarre. Now it's not finding for this one, but I swear that I just did with this model before and it was just fine. Oh my God. Let's see. Let's try it with the Native American. Apparently, if I try with it, it's gonna work now. Maybe not. But I just tested it, man, just to make sure that it was working fine. And I swear that was fine. So it's something funky with ZBrush. So let's see this one. If I import this guy, let's see if the symmetry is gonna work at all. Nope, see, like it says, like the results, symmetry points found, symmetry map is not stored. So if that's the case, so let's go back to Jessica here. And let's try something very radical. So let's see, Jessica made low resolution, so this one. So ZBrush apparently is going to refuse to make a symmetry out of this model, right? So let's try to break this one into Maya. And Maya can actually do this better than ZBrush a lot of times. So if I have the model in here, which is already there, what you can do, you can click this little guy here that says symmetry off. You can just go to topology. And then you pick like a center edge. So for example, the nose, this edge here, or 81. And then now it's the model has symmetry. So if you select anything, it's going to go like both sides at the same time, right? So now we can actually select all the polygons, everything. It has to have a component selected, so select the polygons. And then you go to mesh tools, actually to edit mesh, and then click symmetry or whatever. And oh, symmetry seam must be planar to use symmetry. Flatten the seam along the symmetry axis. That's an interesting one. Let's try with this guy here. Let's see if it works. That's I think it's because of the rotation in the neck in there. So funny because she was working just fine in ZBrush. So let's try this. Symmetry in the middle again. Let's try to select everything and see if it works. So edit mesh, symmetry. Okay, so this one worked. So it made it symmetrical, which is very weird, isn't it? That for her is not working. One way to force it is to do something very dumb like this. Let's see if I can force it. If I double click the center line, and if my topology is actually going across like that, you can actually flatten it just like it was saying there by clicking R for the scale, right? And then you can actually just like do this and just like make it completely flat and then move it back to the center. So now it's going to be centered, let's say, like around the face in there. But then when it comes to neck and everything, is going to be a mess. So I'm not sure if this is going to work great, but we can try. Let's see. Topology, the middle, select everything. The guy's symmetrical. I'm just not trusting that mesh that much. And then symmetry. So in that case, it worked, right? It's going to look like funny in the neck in there, but at least it worked somehow. Let's try to smooth that out a little bit. Obviously, with the model you have in there, you're probably not going to need all this crap I'm doing here. But so if I just click, just get like this smooth tool here and just like smooth out this area. It's the size of my brush. There you go. If I smooth that out, at least we don't have a lot of crap happening there. Just correct a little bit. Then you can bring this one in ZBrush and see if ZBrush is a little kinder now, you know, allowing us to do symmetry in there. So let's click this one, export selection. It's a little touchy, you know, it's like when it comes to those, the topology, like for symmetry stuff. In the past, seems like the old version of ZBrush, I never had this type of problem before. And then I could swear, like not long ago, this stuff started to happen with a lot of the models that I use. So I'm not sure. Even like some of my students, Roger was actually having a lot of trouble with the symmetry during one of those classes. So let's see, head 1.obj. So let's get this one, tribes. And let's bring this one and replace this one with that. So let's try that and see if it works. Tribes, obj, head 1. So now that's our head in there. And let's see if we do anything here, smart resim. Still, that's so weird. It's saying that actually is not a symmetrical model, which it is. And it was tested many times. So if you guys have any suggestion what to try, because I'm pretty sure this model is pretty symmetrical. The same way that the Native American guy, I thought it was completely symmetrical until I got that, you know, that message in there. posable symmetry. See, the posable symmetry works fine. So that means like it's actually finding symmetry. So I'm not sure why ZBrush is goofing around with saying that things are not symmetrical, you know. But, you know, that's not going to stop us from projecting things. And I'm going to go forward. And if I figure this thing out, then I can update you guys on that.
Chris.
Yeah.
You might check one thing and try and just mask half of the model before pressing Smart Wisdom.
Yeah, see, like right now we actually was able to do that. Seems like it's out of the axis. Seems like it's bringing it out of axis for some reason. But I know what you mean. Like, yeah. So if I do this, right, like, and I try to, yeah. But seems like it's out. The axis is wrong. Look at
that. Can you change to the gizmo?
Yeah. It's yeah. That's the thing, man. Like. Yeah, if I go symmetrical here, I can get it, but let's see. Without the mask, I think I can get, let's try from here. Yeah, so that's supposed to be the middle, but because like I moved stuff around, maybe it's not finding it. It's not finding the center line. Actually, it is pretty centered now. Let's see. Yeah, it's so bizarre.
Try and press the house button just to center the model again. Yeah, and now try to do it again.
Yeah, but the thing is, like in Maya, it's completely centered, right? Yeah, this way is gonna work, but I mean, like, let's say if I export this one back to Maya, let's see what happens.
It's weird.
It's weird, isn't it? It's the kind of stuff like I didn't have that in the past, but let's see. Let's bring this one, import, and yeah, there's always a little thing here and there that we discovered. So let's see, head 2. See, now it's out of place, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, there's that. Okay. So bizarre.
Sometimes for me, what it works is when this happens, is just go to the star, to the Polymesh 3D, or to any other thing that you know that is in the center.
Yeah.
Any other tool, and import it there. And that kind of takes like the center where it's supposed to be, because it's yeah, I think it's a subtool corruption kind of thing.
I think you're right. It kind of sounds like corruption to me, and I was like, it's let's try again, like with the star here. Let's see if that works. Yeah, in this case, it works, man. You're right. Yeah. Just by resetting, like yeah, man, it drives me nuts.
Yeah, something like it's ZBrush, you know.
Yeah, let's try like some. So let's do this. Yeah, it's working just fine. You know, it's like the symmetry is back. So yeah, weird. I think like with the Native American, I tried to do that and it didn't work. But let's try again, just for the sake of it. See if that fixes it. If it fixes, then I'm gonna keep that in mind every time. Let's see if I get this one here. Import it in there because it has a very symmetrical middle line. So let's see what it does. Yeah, it's working. It's just because it's very, very, oh, actually it's crossing this. It looks a little busted. Yeah, it seems like with her is fine. With him is getting a little busted. So let me just ignore this model and I'm just gonna use her for now. So delete this one. This one, let's see. This is the symmetrical one. Let's see. This is the symmetric one. Which one? Let's see. Information. Smart resim. Yeah, this is the one that's supposed to be good. So we're gonna go to the other one, this one, and I'm gonna delete it. So we're not confused. So delete it. So I have this guy here and I have our sketch. So let's start fresh in here. So that's the sketch we need to transfer. Let's, so I have my head in there in the background. I'm gonna just press append and then append that model here. So she is out of place. And I hope things gonna work out now that she's completely offset. That's gonna be a fun one to watch what happens. So let's get her, gonna go and put her on the top level, top subtool. So she's gonna be at the very top. And I'm gonna bring her up here. Let's see, let's try to center right here. I wonder if now she works or if she's gonna be busted again. Let's try. Oh, now it works. Very cool, ZBrush. Very cool. Very nice of you. All right, let's try this just for the sake of it. Yep, it's working. Oh man, God knows what happened. So let's bring the model like close enough in terms of position of the face and rotation as well. So I'm gonna do like a close enough. It doesn't need to be too close. What happened with ZWrap? It takes it has a little bit of a learning curve, and then what happens is that openings, as everything when you're projecting stuff in ZBrush, even when you project stuff manually, openings like eyes and mouth, those are the trickiest parts to project, right? So I'm gonna try to get her close enough here, around there. And then let's see if it's fairly in the middle. Yeah, seems like it is, maybe a little bit more around here. And so we're gonna try to project some stuff, but before I do that, I think it would be interesting to actually save a morph target. So let's try to do something like, for example, like the inner part of the eyes. If you look at my model, because I have all the UDIMs in place, right? Right now I don't have any polygroups in here, but you can go to polygroups and you can say, if you do simply like UV groups, you're gonna get less chunks because it's gonna be basically considering every single piece that's inside of the same UDIM as one of those. But if you do other groups with UV, then it's gonna break down further to any little piece in there inside of the UDIMs, right? So I have it separated this way because of my UDIMs, the UV layout I have. So I can actually quickly select things like the inner part of the eyes, like that. Let's get both sides and then this area here as well. So that's the inner part of the eyes. So we can see what's outside and there, the other side, that we can just go to display properties and turn double. So we can see the other side. And then let's do the same for the inner part of the mouth. Like that. So I think like at this point here, what we can do, we can actually lock them. So if I reverse the whole thing by pressing Control Shift and then open a little window, I can invert the selection, right, or the visibility. So if I do this, I can actually press Control and click outside. So it's gonna mask everything here. And then now I have all that stuff masked. I don't know exactly, I never tried ZWrap with a mask. You might actually preserve it, but I'm not sure. So what I can do, I can actually create the morph target here first, just so I can actually recover that stuff if I make any mistake here, or if the solve is not too perfect, you know. But before I do that, I think what I'm gonna do here is just make things a little bit more approximate. So it doesn't need to be perfect at all. ZWrap does a great job with that stuff. But I'm gonna do, first I'm gonna turn on symmetry using posable symmetry. So it actually is based on topology. And I'm gonna just move some stuff around here. So the eyes are gonna get fairly in a very similar spot, but not like perfect, just like similar spot. So I can actually preserve the inner part that I wanna, you know, it's like preserve that cavity in there. And then just have the eyelids in a similar position, but then the back in there, I'm gonna leave it untouched. And then I'm gonna do the same thing for the lips. So the lips are gonna pull them out. And she has a big smile here, which is might make things easier or more complicated. So let's hope it's the first option. So you see, like with the corner in there, it's gonna be a little bit more complicated. But in terms of the position of the inner mouth, like basically like the inner piece of the mouth. So I'm gonna see if I can make it a little bit closer to this, and then that's it. I think something like that should help. And then since I'm here, I can actually save some time from the solver by moving this stuff a little bit higher as well. Just making a little bit closer to this one. Again, doesn't need to be perfect at all. It can be fairly off and still should work fine. But you know, just to have something to help the solver a little bit. I've done some of them that I had very close, and the result was not as good. And some of them I had like very far away, and the solver just like caught everything with the very few points. So you never know, you know. It's like just like with ZBrush, there is always something that you know, you don't understand what the algorithm is doing in the background. You know, it's like, how is it solving everything? But it's interesting. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, you know. So if I have something like that, that should be more than enough. I think it's even overkill in certain areas here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do the same thing I did before. I'm gonna just like select those areas inside and create a mask. Or simply like, let's do it differently. Let's just do a morph target here. So let's see, morph target should, you know, at least like preserve that. And then we can mask later and try to, you know, blend it back. So so I have now my model, the base model here in the first subtool, and the second subtool is the sketch. That's the, you know, the high resolution sketch, right? This guy right there. So what we're gonna need is to actually create a, you know, a nice topology for it. That's why we're using this one. So let's do a projection here. I'm gonna select, both of them are visible, nothing else is visible. And I have the topology at the top and then the sketch in the bottom. So let's go to Z plugin. I'm gonna click Start VWrap. It opens a different interface here. And then you can, for example, if you click this sync views in here, basically everything you do in one view, you should do in the other one as well, right? So you can actually do, you know, it's like zoom in and out, stuff like that. So it's basically synchronized, right? And then you have options like this. So for example, like turning on symmetry for both sides. So that means you can only, you don't need to place the points in both sides. You just place in one side, and then the other one is going to be searched and put in place. And then now you're going to see like you have your cursor is like red in there. You can do things like this. Let's look for some points of, you know, landmarks in here. So if I start with this corner of the eye in here in the fold, so I'm going to get one point in here. I can go to this window, put the same point right there corresponded. Can do like the middle area right here. I'm gonna get the fold around there as well. And I'm gonna get like the inner part right here, the caruncula, put it right there. Maybe I can get this area to conform to around this area. Some of the stuff here you don't even need, you know. It's very good at searching for stuff. But I would say like certain areas like the lids, it can get very complicated sometimes. Sometimes it just doesn't find. I'm gonna try to force at least like a few points in here. So I'm gonna do another one there and here. And same is gonna go for the bottom part. So this guy, right there, right here. It should be kind of enough. Probably like the, like I said, the inside is gonna be a mess, but hopefully the rest is gonna be fine. So we're gonna get like the top part here, the end of the nasolabial right there. And I'm gonna get the corner with corner. The top of the lip in here with that meshed as well. Can even get like maybe like this bottom area right here, something like that. And then the bottom area here with that. And let's try to get maybe like the, it's gonna be interesting because if it was a closed mouth, it would be fairly easy, you know, to just like match, but because she has her mouth very open in there now and very weird like a frog, it's gonna take a little bit more of calculation, I suppose. So let's try this, and then let's see what else we can do in terms of like general points like the mandible in here. Like this point of the ear right there, a little fold right there, and one point just to show where I need this, like maybe around here, and right here. Head itself, I mean, like you can put like maybe few points, but you don't need a lot, you know. It's like, this is just like, it really, like sometimes you don't need any point in the head. You really search for everything. It's really cool. And then let's get the lower part of the chin just to make sure he understands that we need this line with this one.
Chris,
And yes.
I think the numbers is wrong.
Oh, where?
Look, the nose, 16 and 17.
16, 17? It looks correct.
Oh no, yes, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to redo it. No, it looks good.
Yes, sorry.
That's
my fault.
no problem, man. So this one and this one, I mean, like, again, this is not gonna be that much. I'm just like, maybe I'm adding too much stuff. I'm just like concerned that's gonna work from the get-go, because I'm concerned of this like open mouth, you know. It's like this stuff sometimes gets very weird. But when I tried with another model, I didn't have to do anything with the nose, for example. Like I just put one point in here and you actually found everything. So that's what I'm saying. You know, it's like sometimes it's a little overkill. I'm gonna get this one, the last one, I guess. And then let's try to see what happens with this guy, the way it is. So the way it's gonna work is gonna be like that. You're gonna go to wrapping here. There's a button in there, right? So click that one. You're gonna see both models overlapping. And then all you have to do now is just say start wrapping. And that should take a few minutes, you know. It's not like an instant thing. Sometimes you watch those videos online and it looks like, oh my God, this stuff is like magic. It is actually. For what it does, I mean, it's pretty magical. But it's not like a single pass. It does a few passes, you know. And then there are preferences, of course, like under the preference, you can reduce like from multiple passes to just one pass or whatever. But if you have like a model that's fairly different from the other one, I would not recommend that much, you know. I hope I have enough information in the edges of the lips, actually. If I don't, and if it's close enough, I might actually just do like manually just do some sculpting in there, or come back here and just, you know, add some more points and just try to get this area solved. But it's already like really capturing a lot of stuff. And of course, like the more points you have, the longer it's going to take to calculate, because, you know, goes through every single one of them and try to match. But like I said, I'm just afraid that the model is so different with open mouth that I'm going to be wasting time if it's like too, you know, if the final result is too buggy. But I love this thing, man. It's like I've seen like we see like the inside of the eyes already like really crushing in there. But that's why I saved that morph target. Hopefully you can actually just select those inside faces and just merge them back, blend them back. Let's see if that's gonna happen or not.
The standalone version of Wrap3, you can assign material to the interior of the eyes and the interior of the mouth. And then there is a node that it keeps that out of the wrapping. Oh, nice. But it follows completely the eye, so it stays there super clean, and it's just amazing. And it's a node-based software too, right? Like you can have like all those nodes you can plug. Yes, but it's so straightforward too. You just need like a couple of nodes. It's so nice. Yeah, man, it's such a beautiful piece of software. Yes.
I might have missed a step, but I think you can actually use the masking in ZBrush to actually stop that certain areas wrapping. I don't know if you did that already. Yeah, I did like at the beginning, and I had this question about it, and then I ended up just like removing the mask and just like gonna use like a morph brush at the end. But yeah, but I mean, like if the mask really works, that's awesome, man. I just thought about like, okay, let's do it straight away, and then just like basically blend things back, select and blend them back. So you should kind of like do the same thing, I suppose. Cool. But yeah,
just want to get like the it's almost like the cover of everything has to be correct. I think correcting just like cavities and stuff is always easier, unless it really gets completely mangled like around the edges and stuff like that. But I hope it's not going to be too mangled. It's going to be okay-ish. So let's see. It's almost over in there. So let's see. Pass number 3 out of 3. Still has to solve this area here. It's getting pretty close now. Yeah, it's becoming like very fast, kind of like a standard, right? Like a lot of people using this ZWrap, especially people working with scans. I don't work with that many scans. I mean, like I work with them when I'm doing like digital doubles and stuff. But I don't know if we have many of those licenses actually at work, but it would be great if we had a lot of them. So let's see. Yeah, seems like the lips, I don't think I put enough points at the lips to actually really seal them together. But like I said before, it's like an easy touch. You just go with the move brush in there, the topological, and just like move and get that sealed and start projecting. But the eyes and inside of the mouth definitely gonna get pretty mangled based on what I'm seeing here. So wrap process is complete. So the eyes and the inside of the mouth, they are busted in there. But the external part looks pretty good. Also that little, you know, it's like the ear canal in there, it's out of place. But everything else looks really good. So let's just click done. So we have our guy in there. Let's do some masking here and get those guys in place. So let's just get this and those guys. Actually the carancula as well. Probably gonna need that. And this guy here, let's see. No, that's part of it. So I think I'm gonna do just like a regular blend in there. So let's do a mask first. Let's mask these guys, actually, and then reverse it. And let's try to blend those ones back. So morph, let's see if that works or not. Morph, let's try this. So yeah, it's gonna bring them back to original place, at least not that busted in there. And those little edges in there are gonna have to do a little correction for sure. Let's try. I'm gonna morph this one. Let's see, with low intensity. And then you can just like do a little fix, manual fix. This area here too got a little busted in there. Yeah, so it is smooth, and then we go back and just do like a manual projection in there. Seems like this got a little thin as well, so let's see. Oh, I thought I was blending things together, but apparently I did not. So let's do this, this, and this. Oh, ah. That's okay. Let's try the morph here. Okay, back to the inside. Okay, so that should be okay. But this one here, actually, because of the structure of the face is so different, and I have to bring this one in manually by moving this stuff right here. And then this inside here, yeah, I missed a couple of points, I suppose, and then it got pretty busted in there. But I can actually smooth it out. It's like this is the type of model that's like not very ideal for this because of the facial expression being so different with the open mouth and with you know, a balloon inside of it, right? So not like the ideal model, but we always get this done anyway. Yeah, it seems like it's projecting stuff like in some weird, you know, directions in there, like this guy. Let's try to get the other piece, which is right there. I'm just gonna blend this. Yes.
I'm not sure if I missed this, but when you were projecting, when you were setting up all the points with your base mesh, would it have helped if you closed the mouth on the base mesh more to match up with the the model you were going to project onto?
Yeah,
even if it was crude.
I think it would help, It's like, but because of the pocket inside of the mouth, I think I tried this in the past, and the inside of the mouth is still popped completely out, So kind of like, yeah, it exploded. So that's why I thought, like, okay, let's keep it open. But I think I could have used a little bit more, some more points, It's like, I think that probably would help.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, this is gonna take a little work, but probably not a lot. It's just like really trying to get this. I guess like what happened is here because everything was busted inside. You ended up like deflating, making the lips very, very thin from the inside. But I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna just get those guys. Yeah, from here I think I can see it better, especially from the bottom. So just gonna pull this back a little bit, just to add a little more thickness to it. Let's see, with my inflate, no, with the topological. But this, like, even though you have to do a couple of fixes sometimes for that, it's still so much faster than doing like manual projection. The manual projection I would do like everything by hand, like by selecting little areas at a time, and then just going and projecting each one of those. And I was doing this in the first classes actually before I started using the ZWrap. And we always managed to get it done, I was like, but it would take like the entire class to do that. Would not have time for anything else. But in this case here, we're gonna be able to do it. It's just like takes a little time to adjust a few things. So I'm gonna just inflate this low intensity just a little bit and try to smooth it out. Especially the carunculus in here, I'm gonna have to pay extra attention. Although I use a separate object for the carunculus, I want to make sure that this one here at least is not exploding like it's doing in there. So I think the best way at this point, I'm going to just select half, and let's just try to transfer that over and hope that the symmetry is going to be working actually. Yeah, it worked fairly okay. And then, okay, let's see how our model looks like in the background and see what we can start projecting. Let's try this. So let's subdivide, see if something is not completely busted, otherwise the subdivision is going to be a little tricky. But let's see if we have enough symmetry, which should be okay. Back. Oh yeah, those ones are busted too. So let's get this area. This guy here. And this and this. Let's try to blend it. So morph. Okay, so now it's inside. Back to where it's supposed to be. Something like that. And then let's see what else. I think we are good. So let's do some, let's start like by basically what I do manually normally, doing by selectively. But before that, I'm gonna just subdivide this mesh. We're gonna subdivide just once for now. So I got to 69.306. Let's switch here to my inflate brush just in case if we need. And then let's do some projection. Let's start by isolating just the shell. So I'm gonna try to start with that part. And the mouth, I'm gonna leave it the way it is right now. This one is pretty safe. Actually, let's go back. Not this one yet. Let's do those eye bags, nostril, and this should be fine too. The back here, here, and the base. So all those parts here should be pretty safe to project. So let's go to turn this one on. And then we can smooth it in between if it's having too many problems in there. And let's go to project, and let's just do like a project wall here. So that should give us fairly decent projection right there. This one seems like the distance is a little high, a little bit too distant, but we can actually reproject that area to do this smooth. And then let's see the lids in here. I think they still got a little artifact, but since this is not like a final model, it's the model that's going to be starting to work from this point on. We just need to have it like fairly decent before we can actually work on it. So let's see the inside. So I can treat that as okay for what we need. And then from this point on, I'm going to start being more careful with it. Let's see that top lid. Seems like there's a little intersection happening there too. I'm going to smooth it out. Just kind of like close enough to the point I need them, but I can actually make this fold, this lining here actually go all the way to the top in there and actually mesh the fold on the top. So I can do that next. But let's fix this mouth. The lips are too distant right now. So let's do this. Bring this one up. This one up as well. Out with the Alt. And then let's see, if we turn this one off. It's okay-ish. So I can do here as well is to select by topology. Just select like the topology around the lips in here. And then let's just bring this one down a little bit and smooth it a little bit higher. So let's select by topology right here around the lips. And my topology is in a good spot to do that. Let's do this. So if I click by topology, just like control, and I click and drag, I can go like towards the middle of the lips in there. I can do this from the bottom up right here and find a spot where the topology, you know, everything meets in there, right? So if I do something like this and I reverse it, now basically like it's masked inside of the mouth. It should be masked inside of the entire mouth in there. So if I try to project in that area, let's try that. Just smooth that out a little bit. So project it inside. I'm gonna just mask a couple of areas that I don't wanna do anything right now. So eyes in here and the ears. And see if that's gonna do a decent projection just by having the inner mouth and the eyes and ears selected. So let's try this again. Projection. Select the bottom one. So let's do it. Project all. Nothing exploded in there. Good. So the lips, let's see what happened with the lips in here. If I turn this one off. Looks fairly okay. It's the kind of stuff, I mean, like, I didn't go too crazy with the detail, right? So in theory, I could just like start working with this model the way it is, but I want to go a little bit higher. So like 69,000 polys, let's put closer to what we need, like to do the, like the maximum level before HD, which should be like, in my case here, 1 point something million polygons. So I'm going to do like one more subdivision. So 1.1 million. And that's my maximum before HD, right? So let's try to project as much detail as we can in here. It's kind of overkill because this one has only 620,000 polys, but I want to capture most of the stuff. Obviously, all this sketchy stuff are going to be eliminating later, but let's see what happens here. So let's do the same thing I just did with the topology. So I'm going to bring this one, click right here around this area, and then bring it up until I find where the topology meets in there. Maybe a little bit more from the side right here. Yeah, that's better. And that little gap, I can either like resculpt on, or just like, you know, it's a sketch after all. That's why I don't go too crazy with the topology in there, with the detail in there. And then here, let's do the same for the eyes, because the eyes are fairly okay. The lids I'm probably going to revisit in a second, just to get a little bit better projection. But the inside, I want it completely masked. Let's do something like this first. So project all. And there's certain areas that probably like have a bigger distance. So I'm probably gonna have to, like this one here, gonna have to bring it closer to the model itself. But I'm gonna do this selectively. Everything here seems okay, other than some parts like that one. So I'm gonna do that. Oh, I forgot to do like the ear. I hope it didn't explode inside. Let's see, let's just investigate here. Oh, the ear looks okay. The eardrum seems like it's going the right direction. So what's necessary here now is to get those areas a little bit closer to the model that's in the background. So let's just deselect everything. We're gonna get this stuff like a little closer, smooth it out. Bring this a little closer too, remove that hole. Always using Alt like to bring in a normal direction. And then I saw another piece like right there. Let's smooth it a little bit. Yeah, I mean, like if you guys are more careful with the way you're projecting stuff, and especially if your model doesn't have an open mouth when you try to project, things should go a little bit smoother than what I'm doing here. But yeah, I like to think that that's a sketch and I'm gonna have to tweak things anyway. So I'm gonna start this sculpt with something that has a lot of the forms I put in place, but at the same time, knowing that there's a lot I have to do to get stuff to look better. So let's try that. Just a little bit smoothing as well. And yeah, so let's select this area here. Select this area right here. And maybe just, you know, with a little bit of care in here, I might be able to actually get this to project correctly, but I'm not sure if it's gonna happen. Let's see, all the way here. Reverse it. Let's try to project this stuff again. Yeah, hopefully, yeah, a little artifact right there, but should be good enough for us to start. So let's hide the original one. And then this guy here should have most of the detail from the sketch. And then obviously now, because everything is so sketchy, I'm gonna have to start cleaning up, removing blinds and all that stuff. So a lot of the stuff that's in here, it kind of like doesn't matter that much. But yeah, we got our topology in there. So that's the base model. Let me just check if my symmetry is still working, because that was driving me nuts. Yeah, it's working. The topology is in there. Now, for this kind of stuff here, like I mentioned before, if you have like the lids and you need to move stuff around and reproject at the same time, there is a very interesting trick that one of my students, Omid, he actually came up with this, and he mentioned it. I was like, man, I had no idea that it worked like that. But it's a very clever little trick that goes like this. You, for example, if you want to move the edges, for example, slide edges around without losing the forms that are already sculpted. So for example, like just like redistribute the topology a little bit, you know. For example, you want to open, you know, bring things a little bit more towards the back like that, but without losing what's sculpted on top. You can do this. You just go to a resolution that you want to keep. For example, it doesn't need to be the highest one, but let's say like something maybe around here. And then let's say I want to reproject the detail in that same time, like just like move all the edges around. So there is this option here under morph target. So if you delete any morph target you have, you store one, and then you can actually move stuff around. So for example, you get like those lines if you want to expand this to get like this area here to match the eye bags a little bit better. So I'm gonna bring it down like that, right? You can even do a little smooth, just make sure that things are nice and smooth. Then you can click this button here that says project morph, and you can click it and drag all the way. So I'm gonna drag all the way and then release it. And it pops back in place. Like all the sculpt detail is back to place, and then the topology is changed. Not changed, but like, I mean, like I'm sliding those edges around, right? Same with this area here. So for example, if I move this up to try to match that fold in there, I don't know how good of a job it's going to do here because I'm pulling quite a lot. But let's say I get it right there. And I'm going to smooth it out. And I'm going to pull this edge down here as well, just to make sure that has a little bit more of a flow. It's kind of like a good to do at the beginning because later on, if you're starting to work with XGen, you want to make sure you're able to select like straight edges. You know, it's like it's good if you have something right at the edge of the eye in there. But just check this out. So if I pull this up just to match the fold a little bit more, a little better in there, smooth it a little bit. You go to that project morph, just pull all the way and release it, and you get a projection. In this case here, it intersects a little bit, but it's just a matter of like a little smooth in there, and it looks much better. Same like if you have stuff like a distribution of polygons in certain areas, right? Especially with facial expression. I'm actually surprised that for how different her face was, that those edges actually landed in a good position in here. But let's say if you have your nasal labia, you want to make this like closer to the position you need. So I'll read a little bit like that. And then this one back, maybe this one a little higher, just to get this flow a little bit more interesting. Maybe those lines a little bit higher here as well. Lips, let's say, if I want to get this line a little bit more like a ring, right? I'm going to bring this up a little bit. So they're actually the same level as the top ones. And then those guys maybe up a little bit, smooth, something like that. And then do like a project morph. And boom. It's such a cool feature, you know? So yeah, like at this point here, the model is fairly in a good state that we can actually start cleaning things up. So I'm gonna just like remove some of those lines. And then, you know, it's a sketch after all. So I'm gonna just like smooth some of that and then start with, let's start with 50 for the smooth. And then everything else I'm going to be doing from this point on, I'm going to be like refining things, right? The cool thing when you have a decent topology that actually follows the flow of the form is that you need much less polygons to represent like complex forms, right? So for example, nasal labia here, it seems like fairly clean. And it's kind of like in a good position. Let me just create another morph target. And I'm just going to slide this slightly again, just to make sure that it follows that line more perfectly. Then smooth it again. And then project morph, release. Yeah, so much better. So let's do this. And then start like doing some smoothing here. And then later gonna actually go inside of the mouth in there and actually fix all that crap that's happening at the edge, right? So what I can do here at this point, if I wanted to do that, I can just go Control Shift and select like this, probably like getting half of the balloon that's inside. And then I have access to that area, right? And then even this way, I can actually use that trick with the topology selection as well. So, and instead of like going up right here towards the center, I can start from the top and then do this. And then when I bring all the way down, you can see that I can separate the bottom from the top. I can do this from here too. Right? So that way I can actually hide things like that. So if I have that area completely selected like this, and you go to visibility and you click hide points, basically like you can hide the entire area, and now you can actually have like free access to this entire thing, right? So I can actually just smooth it out. And I'm gonna incorporate a little bit more volume in there too. You have to remember that the lips, they are fairly thick, right? When you look from the inside, there's a lot of meat in there. So the inflate brush, if you use like a low intensity, maybe 2 or 3, should be good. By default is 10, but it's like way too much. Let me just check my time here. You know, it's 10:13. You guys have questions? I mean, like, sorry, it's a little messy here, but we are getting there. If you guys have any questions.
I would like to know, because you said that on Thursdays we will review some of the stuff. And this is the first Thursday, so how is that going to work?
To review things? No, the reviews happen every 2 weeks, and they happen on Saturday.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. So I'm sorry, like, you're probably gonna have, like, you're gonna receive next week an invitation to be part of the meeting, and it's similar to this one. You're gonna get an email with the invitation. It's gonna be a different number, and then the meeting to be. Normally, what I do is like to be able to reach everybody, because you guys are all over the map, right? There are people in Europe and all kinds of places. I normally do the class the same time that I'm doing, like, normally this week. So like at 9 at night for me, and whatever time it is for you guys. But also I do another one at 9 in the morning here. So they're basically like 12 hours apart. So to make sure that I can reach every single person. And I was like, and it's Saturday. And I'm here, it's like, I gonna take like as much time as necessary to be able to go through all the work and all the help you guys might need. So yeah, you guys definitely gonna get the invitation this week.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem. So yeah, I think I can get a little bit more volume on both the top and the bottom. Just gonna bring some of that back here. And then I'm gonna start actually. After I have this fairly in a good spot, I can actually do a little micro projection just with the faces here, so I can get a little closer to what I had before, but you should be okay. So let's try this. This area here, for example, if it gets a little tricky, you can do that. Just like select the upper area and then bring it down. Do a little smoothing there.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
So I have two questions. One is from about yesterday's session.
Okay.
I was watching, before class started, I was following along with the Stan Winston course, I think it was. And I noticed in there for the coat setting, when you were doing the skin shading, you had the weight setting really low. You kind of made it a point of like super subtle on the coat weight value. But I noticed yesterday you went pretty heavy with it. I marked it down at like 0.756 or something like that.
For the coat.
Is that something, as you just playing around with it from then to now, worked better for you, or
I think it's a combination. It's like sometimes I play with some of those values and I discover like different ways of approaching it. But I would say like that those first classes, I would not trust anything in terms of like, in terms of those values, because I'm not actually digging to the blend to the skin shader yet. What I did was actually just like I started with a preset from Arnold, right? And then I was playing with that and like trying to compensate certain things, because that shader is not ideal for me at all, like the default one that comes with Arnold.
Yeah.
But then and then there's a combination of things, it's like if you look through those classes, each month, like I tweak things slightly, it's like, and I think like certain things work better. Sometimes I end up like revisiting and going back to the old way. So yeah, it's always like it's always a constant experimentation,
Yeah, that's cool. I think that makes sense, because I posted some of the work that I did following along with that, and I think you commented about the spec and maybe the coat being a little bit too strong. I think that's that could probably be why.
Yeah, and that I would say like it all depends of how you're plugging your micro bump maps. Right, like not maps. For example, like the map is another one. Like I think in the first class I used a map, and maybe like 2 classes in, I decided to actually use like a procedural map, and then I stuck with the procedural kind of like a cellular kind of map in there.
Right.
And for example, like you can use like a very high specular, but if you have enough breakup, that all becomes very diffuse. It becomes like very rough, and then in that case, it's like it's almost like you're not using a lot of spec at all. But then if you're using a very shallow kind of like micro bump in there, then it's going to show up a lot, So it's like all those things, they play together. Is a combination of how much roughness you're using and how much how strong are the specular maps, So it can be definitely a combination. Yeah.
The other question was, following along with you now, you seem to keep symmetry a lot longer than I expected.
Oh yeah.
Just my process, for whatever, I think, again, because I come from clay originally.
Yeah.
I break symmetry pretty early on, which it's just, different processes. But yeah, I wonder, do you ever break symmetry earlier for the character's purposes, or because of production, you kind of keep it as long as possible?
Yeah, I think I got used to production, it's like, but I gotta tell you that if I'm doing like a sketch, for example, if I know that the final piece is gonna be a sketch, kind of like my clay renders that I do from time to time.
Yeah.
I don't mind like breaking up the symmetry like super early, But
Right.
but bear in mind that there are a bunch of steps involved in this class that's gonna be like HD geometry steps, right? You're gonna be sculpting like super high resolution meshes, and adding pores like almost like one by one, like either one by one or like arrays of pores and stuff. And if you break the symmetry early, that means doing that job twice, right?
Oh, right.
So I wouldn't mind, for example, like I said, like if it's a model like this at this level, you can break the symmetry. I mean, like if you're gonna do renders like that, but if you're gonna go like for super high resolution pore detail kind of thing, I would strongly recommend to not break the symmetry just yet.
Got it.
But one thing I'm gonna tell you as well is like if you're more comfortable with it, once you have the projection done, just like I did, just go to your lowest resolution, right? Make a symmetrical version of the model, just like create the symmetry, export this mesh and have it saved somewhere like as an OBJ, and then break the symmetry as much as you need to do, and then
right.
and then right before you start like the fine detail, like the pore detail and stuff in HD, you re-import your base mesh, like the symmetrical one, and then go HD, and then you do all the detail, and then at any time you can recover the asymmetrical version,
Okay, and so then you use the map, the displacement map that you get from the symmetrical model. You'll use that on the asymmetrical model. Is that
yes,
right?
exactly.
Okay, yeah, that's smart.
As long as you don't go too crazy deforming things too much, For example, like if you're moving stuff like for example, like you're making an asymmetrical nose here, right? You're gonna try to use like a big brush and try to do things a little bit more carefully, right? Instead of like going too crazy, like really, it's like the formula.
Right.
And then because that way you're gonna preserve like it's more likely that the model is not gonna break, like with stuff like hyper stretched, right? So yeah, I think that's my approach. It's just like to really be save time, Otherwise, you guys you're gonna see like when you start sculpting the pores, it's gonna drive you nuts because, and if you have to be driven nuts twice,
oh my gosh,
yeah, that's gonna be much worse.
Cool, thank you.
No problem.
About the clay scene, I think you mentioned that you had a lighting setup for that. Somewhere?
Yes, I do. Yeah, and I think the lighting, if I didn't share in there, let's see. I can definitely do that and upload it for you guys. Let's see. So let's see.
I think there is a studio lighting part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, like this, my studio lighting setup. I think this one is more like it's like two big area lights for the sides of the face. Like I think when I was rendering Ray Harryhausen. But I think the one I'm using for my clay stuff is not here. So I can do that. I can actually do an upload and just like, an additional lighting setup you guys can use. But it would be cool to actually explore the clay renders, It's like that's what I did in a few of those classes. At the very end, it's like just like out of fun, just like, okay, let's explore how I created each one of those brushes to create the clay renders and the lighting setup, It's like really give you guys it's like probably like the materials as well. Let's see. Yeah, I could give like you guys like the clay material and the clay set, the lighting setup, and that would be an additional thing in there I can add to our library.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, I have a question.
Yes.
So I don't see you using when you do look depth or when you are lighting your scene or anything like that. Mm-hmm. The color chart. Or Lambert 50% gray sphere to check how intense is your lighting compared to your textures, and that is something that intrigues me, because on these last renders I did, my material was very dark because I'm kind of new with these materials and I'm experimenting, but it was looking nice. So when I had to increase the light a lot to make it look good looking, but then when I was just curious, so I apply a lumber to it, a 50% gray lumber, then it was blown away. Like it's completely burned. So I don't know if actually, because it's a skin shader, it absorbs more the lighting, and it's okay to have a little bit more a 50% gray ball, a little bit more blown up, or I don't know, you know the values already for the light and for your materials and that kind of stuff. If you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, I always go like by feeling, right? But the thing is, like, I don't ignore that. I don't ignore the fact that we're gonna need to find a neutral. What I do normally is just, looks like the nose here, when you project it, didn't do a good job. When I get to the point that I'm actually explaining how to do the microporous. So for example, like we bring like the displacement maps, next week we're gonna be bringing the displacement maps in, and then starting to assemble the shader network a little bit further with the micro bump. In that case, when I'm testing the micro bump, I always put like a very neutral shader. And then when I'm doing that process, I can actually calibrate my lights, like to match that. So what I'm doing like in this first days is basically like trying to give you guys, it's like some tools for you to do some quick renders and things like that. But definitely not something like that's, a precise approximation of what we're going to be doing from this point on, I think things going to get more and more complex as we get, to the next weeks. And then, but we're definitely going to check against a very neutral shader, like it's like I would not say a Lambert, but like a surface, how you call like the Arnold surface?
Standard surface or
standard,
something like that.
Standard surface. So we're going to be checking against a neutral standard surface right when we are talking about the micro bump. So we're going to get there for sure.
All right. So it's actually like right now it doesn't really matter because it's just one material applied to everything. So whatever looks right on the viewport or on the render,
exactly.
It's nice.
Yeah.
And then later on we have different materials that they actually have to react to the light properly. Then the values will be actually much more correct, right?
Yeah, it's especially with those guys. Like I think we are both doing like very dark skin, right? Mm-hmm. And in that case, I mean, like it's going to be very tricky because I have this thing about like sometimes I'm trying to do, especially with the Native American guy. I was like, okay, his skin is darker, but it's not like a dark skin. It's like it's a brown. I don't know. It's like it's not like a super dark skin. And so I got like a little bit uncomfortable when I was rendering in a way that it didn't look right for me because I was so like, it's like doing a lot of like very pale skin stuff. And at the same time, I was trying to compensate with the light to look more realistic somehow. It's just because my brain was so, focused on a lighter type of skin. And then in this case here, it's going to be even more important to actually calibrate the lights correctly. So, it's like when you're doing like a very dark skin, actually it doesn't look like underexposed, it's like a render at the end. So yeah, it's very important. And I think what helps a lot as well is to have the eyes looking correct first, and then basically like build the skin around the eyes, it's like so things blend correctly. So we definitely, can definitely be looking at that. And it's cool
that's exactly what it was happening to me. That it was like it looked like it was off the skin,
right?
And it was because of the color that you're using, and it's like, oh, like this is crazy.
yeah, exactly. We're definitely gonna look at that, man. It's gonna be challenging, It's like every single one of those classes, I try to challenge myself a little bit and take some risks, and I never know if it's gonna work at the end. But we always end up like learning something from each other, and things just end up like happening in a way or the other. So.
That was the point. I was having a character ready, likeness for your class, and then when you said about this project and the dark skin, and I was really interested because I know like there is a big challenge there. So
oh, it is, man. Yeah, I've seen like some very good representations. You know, it's like some people actually were able to get some very good results. But yeah, I mean, like Arnold is something that more and more people are using, but still a lot of people use V-Ray. You know, it's like, and then you cannot not actually quite translate sometimes like what they are using in there. Although with there is a shader that's the what's the name of that shader that was created that was being used in Arnold before? Was
AI shader?
Yeah, I think that's it. Was from a guy.
It was
from
the Al Surface, right?
Al Surface,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
The guy
That was
from
great.
the guy from Weta, right? He wrote it.
Yeah.
And so that one, they actually implemented that whole model to V-Ray, and then all of a sudden, like you could actually translate one to another one fine. But then Arnold went further, and they actually decided to incorporate some of that stuff, that same kind of like you know, algorithm or whatever you want to call it, and just like make a very a much like simpler version of it, which contains everything. And it was funny because a lot of people reacted very negatively. You know, it's like kind of like bashing it. It was like, oh, I need the all surface because now my models look like shit and blah blah. Meanwhile, I was actually experimenting with it, and I thought like, wow, this stuff is great. I mean, like I can get similar results with much less work now. I'm down for that. So yeah, it is great, man. I mean, like all those vendors nowadays that can do like amazing skin stuff, and you know.
Yeah, with Mental Ray, it was impossible.
Oh yeah, it was impossible, man. And the other thing was, what's the name of the other one? There's like Redshift now. There's another one that a lot of people use.
Well, RenderMan is using. It's being used in a lot of studios too.
Oh yeah, that's basically what ILM uses, is RenderMan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the kind of stuff, you know, it's like there's a lot of legacy software out there, and they kind of like play catch up with some of those more those innovations happening out there, right? So you see the stuff coming from Arnold, like Solid Angle, and then I don't know about the innovations nowadays that Autodesk bought it up, right? Because Autodesk is great at buying people up and and stopping development and firing people in the process. So I don't know, but the guys from V-Ray, they're pretty amazing too.
Oh, thank you, man.
Well, I'm just excited that I have a base mesh to work now, man. The sketch is very fun, but it always concerns me. And I was like, oh man, I need to start thinking about the secondary, tertiary forms now. So I'm just glad that I have something to work on.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Hey, man. I was wondering, do you have to set up all the you know, when you bring your mesh to Maya, you just set up the subdivision, that Catmull Clark.
Oh yeah.
Set up the SSS name. Do you have to do that every time we bring it to ZBrush, or is that a way to just, you know, like when you bring meshes into ZBrush and it transfers all the high definition, for example? Is there a way to set that up in Maya so we don't have to do it every time we bring a new mesh in?
Oh yeah. That's exactly what we're gonna be doing. For example, yeah, we can actually do a little quick test here. For example, this is a good question, because next week we're gonna start doing more renders and plugging more stuff. So let's use this model the way it is. Let me just do like a save here. By the way, like you guys, a lot of you guys save as a tool, right? Like when you save your models, I normally save as a file, right? In this case here, it saves a project. And the difference is that the project, when you save, it saves like everything, you know, the material, the color, all that stuff. And if you have multiple subtools loaded in here, or multiple tools loaded in different channels in here, it saves everything. So you don't need to, you know, reload everything. Basically, everything is saved with the project. You know, I like that. So let me just save the project in here. Not the Native American, under African tribes. Then let's get this one here. I actually named the African tribes because I'm planning to do more different tribes as well. But I never know if it's gonna happen or not. So that's saved. So the first thing you're gonna do, let's pretend here. Actually, let's not pretend. Let's actually do our first like displacement map exporter here. So we can actually plug all those things in Maya and you can see how everything works, okay? So I think it's a good exercise. So normally what I do, if this model here, at this point, I decide to go HD, basically what I do, so I have like 1.1 million polygons, I would just go to Geometry HD and then subdivide here, right? Click a bunch of times until I see this number here, the total points grow to around 72 million polygons in my case here, right? And then I would stop dividing it. Then to enter HD would be the same thing, enter with A, right? We're gonna be talking about HD next week. But the procedure, what I'm trying to say is that the procedure to export the maps is not different from exporting from with HD and with non-HD. It's gonna be basically the same thing, other than a few settings we're gonna have to add differently in the multi-map exporter. But in general lines, you don't need to do anything too fancy to be able to export HD detail. So in this case here, we don't have HD assigned. We just have the non-HD. So it should export things a little faster, but the procedure is going to be the same. So the first thing I do, I get out of HD if I'm HD. I go down all the way to the basis, the base mesh, right? And then I'm going to export this base mesh here. So I'm going to do export, and I'm going to go to head number 3. That's going to be the number from now on. Actually, let me do better than that. I'm going to name with the correct LR. So LR, low resolution 3. So that's basically it. And then, so at this point here, what I'm going to do, those steps that look silly, but they are very necessary, believe it or not, to be able to export like a precise representation between like the difference between the base mesh and the highest resolution stuff you can have. It can be HD or non-HD. So you have to do this. So first thing, delete any morph target you have, and then you're going to do 3 steps in a row without clicking anything else. It's going to be store, switch, import. And then you're going to get the model I just exported, right? So first you export the model like you at the lowest resolution, and then you go to delete any morph target you have, and you're going to do store, switch, import. Then you're going to get it again. Sounds stupid, but that's the way that ZBrush resets the buffer and can compare what's the difference between the highest resolution to the lowest resolution. And the way you tell ZBrush to do that is around here. So if you go to plugin and multi-map exporter, right? First thing you're gonna do, instead of like exporting in 8K, which is the maximum here, right? You have those presets, goes all the way to 496 and then stops because you don't have another button. But if you click and drag, you can actually max it at 8K, right? So I'm gonna keep it 4K for now because I don't wanna, spend too much time. My map border, from 4, I actually cranked it all the way to 10. So that's what I was talking about, like creating that little buffer to prevent seams. And then if I click export options, if you never set this thing up, any of this is gonna be very different from this. But once you set everything up here the way I have, next time you open your ZBrush, everything should be saved. So it should be in there. So the switch morph target here is the setting that's gonna trigger what we just did with this, right? The store, switch, import thing. That's where you're gonna tell ZBrush at the, during the export process, what to compare to what. So it's gonna compare to that buffer that we saved as a switch morph target, right? And then it's gonna produce just a difference. What this does is, like in the past, if you're exporting displacement maps, and for example, like let's say you're sculpting some bigger forms, like, it's like you have like a very flat, super low res mesh, and then you sculpted the ears, and then the ears created like this, a lot of displacement. Instead of like just being like poor detail, you're actually just displacing almost like the entire ears. And then if you wanted to export, for example, later on, you want to tweak just the pores and export just the difference between the original mesh and the pores themselves, you would always record like the medium resolution stuff and bake everything into the map. So sometimes it would look like double transformation, Sometimes you wanted just the fine detail on top, and then you would get like some medium resolution stuff. So this process I just did assures that he exports exactly the difference between what you see as the lowest possible resolution in your model, and also the it's like the super high resolution. So this is normally like what you do when you export in displacement map out of the ZBrush, right? But I'm gonna add a little twist in here. So you saw that I just exported the lowest resolution mesh, right? So let's do something else. I'm gonna go one subdivision level higher. So basically like the subdivision level 1 and then 2, right? So that's the second subdivision level, and I'm gonna export this model again. I'm gonna do LR, I'm gonna switch to MR. This is gonna be the procedure that we're gonna be doing from now on all the way to the end of the class. It's gonna be the same thing. You're gonna export your base mesh, and then you're gonna export your medium resolution mesh at subdivision level 2. So we're gonna do the same thing. So let's delete. So we're gonna do store, switch, import, and then I'm gonna get the medium resolution one, right? So the difference in here, why I'm doing this, why instead of exporting the lowest resolution, I'm exporting like the medium resolution. It's because I want a mesh that has a little bit more polygons when I'm in back to Maya, because I want XGen to be applied straight to my model instead of like using a proxy model that you just like use a scalp, for example, and groom on top of the scalp. I'm actually grooming in this actual model. So if I have like a super low resolution mesh, it might get like, you know, it's like if you're grooming on top of the geometry, and the geometry is super low res, when you have some curvature, sometimes the hair might look a little bit detached from the hair. There is a displacement node in XGen. You can actually bring it down, bring it inside of the skull, you know, it's like just to counter that. But I rather have like a model that has more geometry. It's also much easier for me to paint polygon masks in Maya later on, like paint some polygons to apply certain different types of grooms in there. So I like having more resolution. So that's the whole reason. But basically, like it's going to be the same procedure, or other than this. So under displacement map, instead of like exporting from subdivision level 1, which would be the expected, right? If you export your lowest level, we're going to switch this to subdivision level 2. That means you're telling ZBrush that you want to export displacements from this level here and up, right? Instead of like the lowest resolution and up. Because this is going to be our new base mesh we're going to send back to Maya. So that's why we need the difference between this one and the highest level. A couple of other settings we're going to look here. We said this is going to be like for the final maps, you're going to be using like 8K, but for now it's 4K. Flip vertically, you keep this one on. ZBrush needs that. Switch morph target on. File names, if you never tweaked anything here, you're going to have to tweak this one here. By default, ZBrush shows as UUVV like that, like the old format. You can keep clicking this button here until it switches to UDIM. So around there, this one. And then you can either use override if you want to make sure that every time you export your maps, you override the old ones. But this sometimes doesn't work if you're using those maps in Maya, and then maybe Windows is gonna stop you from actually being able to override stuff if another software is using it. So you know, depending on how you're gonna do it, I normally keep it on, and then I don't change anything else here. You could potentially change this to other formats, right? But I always keep TIFF in here because I don't even care if it's TIFF or anything else, because I always use an option to export EXRs for my displacements. So I'm gonna click OK. And then let's check what's left in here. So we have switch morph target. We already set the names. We already set the subdivision level to 2. I'm gonna keep adaptive on, and then subdivision DP subpix at the maximum. Actually, if you export the HD geometry, this is actually, it doesn't make a huge difference for render, for exporting time, but it makes a good difference when it comes to the quality of the maps, right? But this actually impacts a little bit more when you don't have HD geometry. So it might be overkill to use adaptive right now. So I might actually just turn it off just for now, but later on when you do the actual maps from HD, we're probably gonna turn it on again. So I'm gonna turn it off for now. And I'm gonna keep 32 bits and EXR on. We definitely don't want to use 16 bits. And by default in your ZBrush, if you never set this up, you should see like 0.5 for the mid gray level, but we're going to be using 0 in here. 0 is the default that's expected by Arnold, and that means like the 0 level is actually completely black, right? So if you look at one of those maps exported in Photoshop, at first glance they're gonna look like completely dark, like impossible to see any detail. But if you put like a corrective node, like a exposure, you're gonna see that detail is all in there. And because it's 32-bit maps, that means that the maps support like negative values, so you can go like below black, right? So that's completely fine to use a black in here, and then 32 in EXR. So with that in mind, the last thing to do is actually name our subtool. So for example, if I just imported that base mesh, it's going to give the name of the obj I just imported, right? So in this case, I'm kind of all ready to go to export my first set of maps. In hope that's not going to take too long. In HD geometry, from 72 million polygons, it exports between 6 and 8 minutes in general to export like 5 maps in 4K, which is really cool. So I'm gonna switch the folder in here to the default folder that Maya looks for maps, which is source images. And I'm just gonna click save in here. So that's gonna be like the first set of maps we're gonna be exporting. And then,
cool.
But yes.
Sorry, do you need to, I know you set up the subdivision, the displacement maps to be exported from subdiv 2 and up, but do you necessarily need the mesh to be on subdivision 2 as you export the maps, or that doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. Actually, ZBrush, it goes back and then it does that automatically, but you have to set it up like, yeah. That doesn't matter. I actually had like at subdivision level 2 in there. So let's see. Let's go back in here. Actually, now that you mentioned that, I think ideally I would have to import the base mesh level 0 for comparison, and then let's see how it's going to turn out here. But I think you're right. I think I would have to export the base level first. Import the base mesh level first, and then set it up just in the export as level 2. But that means that I would have to go higher. I don't think I need to go higher. I think you're right. You just import like the base mesh. But I mean, like for this test here, is not going to make a huge difference. But definitely when you start exporting the HD geometry, let's export like by using the base mesh instead. But we also going to use the 2 in there instead of 1. So while it's exporting all those maps in here, we're going to just go back to ZBrush, and we're going to set this thing up to a scene that we would eventually render. So let's just get this stuff deleted, and just like let's bring back all the stuff I had before. So let's see, sky, dome, and area lights, like that. And then let's bring the model. So this is going to be the first time I'm going to be importing the model. It's going to be the subdivision level 2 model. So we're going to do import obj, and then that's going to be medium resolution. So this one should be like 7 megabytes. And then making sure that I always have single object in here. We saved in the first in our first class. So we're going to just import it again. There you go. So that's the very first time we're beginning here. And then let's assemble the scene as if we are like assembling for future renders, right? Which can be true here. Other than this displacement, we're going to have to regenerate when we have HD. This is going to be the same procedure every time. So we're going to click the model first, and then you're going to go to the attribute editor, and then there are a couple of things we're going to have to set up here for Maya understand that we're going to be importing this stuff to displace with Arnold. So you're going to go to this tab that's called Arnold in here. And then first thing you're going to notice, like opaque. If the model by any chance was a transparent model, like the eyeballs, for example, like you have the transparency map right in the middle for the cornea, you would have to turn this one off, right? because what that means is that the shadows would be opaque even though the model would be transparent. So in order for Arnold to calculate the ray tracing and produce like a transparent shadow, you would have to turn this off. But in this case here, our model is solid, so opaque is on. And then this setting here is very important. I normally match all the scenes that have, all the objects that have subsurface scattering within the face, like teeth, the eyeballs themselves, and the skin. All of them share the same name in here. And you can find this information in the Arnold manual online. What this means is that when Arnold calculates the subsurface scattering, he actually looks for the neighbor objects and blends everything within the same system. So instead of like having, for example, if you have like an eyeball against the eyelid, if you don't have all of them sharing the same name, you're probably gonna get some darker line at the very edge. It's almost like one system ends and the other one starts. But if you have all of them sharing the subsurface in here, everything blends together and you get a much nicer transition between like different objects, you know? So for example, like if you have the teeth against the gums, you're gonna get a nice transition in there, or eyeball against the skin of the eyelid, same thing. So every single object you bring that has a subsurface within the face, just match the name. You can use any name you want as long as they match. I normally put shared SSS, and then basically I just add to all the other objects. So for the subdivision here, that's where you're gonna get like, you know, it's like that interesting thing that I mentioned before, that if you have like a super high resolution mesh, like displacement maps to recreate the original mesh in ZBrush, you're probably gonna have to crank this all the way to a lot of subdivision levels, right? But that would be like your computer would die like for lack of memory, basically. So what Arnold does, you can actually give like, I would say like 4 would be an ideal number in here. 5, you're gonna get definitely more detail, fine detail, actually displaced to the model at render time. In 3, you probably would not get everything you want to do, especially like if I'm trying to displace those little bumps and everything in his face, right? I would have to definitely have more subdivision levels here. So I think 4 is a good point, a good starting point. This one I just leave the way it is. Adaptive space, I normally use object. I don't know why, but I always use the object. And the pin corners here, I normally use linear. So that means like nothing is subdivided. So you notice that in my ZBrush, I don't have smooth turned on. So that means that nothing is subdivided. This is a great way to prevent seams as well, because if you match what Arnold is doing here with the subdivision that ZBrush is doing, then you're good to go. But for example, like the Catmull Clark from ZBrush to Maya, there is always a tiny little difference, which is weird because they use the same system, but it doesn't subdivide exactly the same. At least that's what I noticed. So getting everything linear in both Maya and ZBrush guarantees that, you know, they're not going to subdivide at all. They're not going to smooth at all, like the UVs within the mesh, right, inside of the aisles. And that means that things going to be more precise. Then if we go down here to the displacement attributes, by default, like I said before, so the expected is 0 for the scalar 0 value, right? So that's basically what Arnold has. So that's why we kept that 0 in there. Height at 1. If you crank this one, you exaggerate the displacement. If you put a lower number, you're gonna make it more subtle, right? So you can play with that as well. And auto bump is the one that does the magic, right? Like shifting whatever high resolution detail was not, it was not able to accommodate within the 4 subdivision levels. It shifts all the higher levels to bump. It creates a bump map in doing like render time, right? So you don't need to create the bump map. It's just created at render time. And that's basically it. So that's the way I set up the model to receive the displacement maps. Now, how to plug the displacement maps. Let's go to our Hypershade. And then we have our skin in there. Let's use the same skin. If I expand this one, let's look at around here. So that's the same skin shader that we had before. The difference now is that we're going to click this button here, this little arrow, And now I'm gonna have access to this tab here that says displacement material. So if I click on it, I'm gonna just select the files, which should be rendering still. Let's look at how many we have so far. So far we have 4 out of 5, right? They are 4K, so the last one should be coming very soon. Let's wait for a second here. Let's see. Yeah, this should be the last one. Actually even plug those ones for now. So if I just click the first one, I could just open it. And then first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna turn off any filter. I'm gonna keep it completely off to make sure that there's no filter being applied to the map. And then the second thing is gonna be this one here. So you see like the number here, if you set everything to Mari, like we did before in ZBrush in the exported, we set to UDIM. Every single map is gonna be numbered like 1001, 1002, 1003, you know, and so on. And then for Arnold to recognize this, there is this tab in here that says zero base ZBrush or Mari, right? There's this Mari here. If you click on it, it found 4 tiles automatically. So instead of like using the 1001, it created this automatic tag in here, putting like UDIM. So he understands that actually he's gonna search for those numbers and automatically apply each one of them to the right UDIM space, right? So it's still missing one. So let's wait and let's see if we can get that done soon. And then I can just click reload in here. And as soon as that map is rendered, I can actually just assign it. Still waiting. Okay, 10 minutes. 10 minutes is still more than actually when you have HD geometry assigned to it. So we're gonna try that later, next week. So reload. So now we found the 5 tiles, right? It's all in there. I'm gonna go and scroll down here to show you that it has to be in raw, right? If you're doing displacement maps, raw. And then for the Arnold tab right here, I'm gonna turn off this auto-generate TX textures because I don't want it to generate. I want it to be able to iterate constantly on it. So now, if I go back in here and I look at my hypershade, let's look at my skin. Where is my skin? Right here. And I'm gonna go to graph and then input output. Let's get this one, graph input output. So now I can see I have my displacement node applied in there, and then I have my texture in here, right? All assigned. So let's see if we try to render this guy. Did I apply the material? I don't think I did. Let's apply the material to the model. I think I did actually. It's just in case. Skin, graph input output, and then let's just assign this to this. So right click, assign material. And another thing you're gonna notice here is that you have like those, it's pretty squarish, right? It's because I don't have like the normals are pretty square, but because you're subdividing so many times at the render time in there, this square is probably gonna disappear anyway. But if you want to get rid of them right now, you can just go to mesh display and then set everything to soft edge, and that should make it smooth, right? So let's see if I go back here, let's see this angle. Let's see if we can get any of those little bumps in there. Let's try Arnold render. Let's press that one. I hope that the light is all in place. It's not gonna be busted. And then let's go back here. Make sure that, yeah, so I should be able to get similar detail from that, although I have much less resolution, but let's see, still loading those maps. There you go. Yeah, here are the bumps. Already showing there, around here as well. Now, if I do this, let's just like open a little window in here, just to render just this little chunk. Let's see what happens. So let's just save this, for example, as like a view store snapshot. So we have it stored right there for later. So what are we gonna do? Let's just increase the number of subdivisions from 4 to 5, just to see if anything different happens here. So 5. It's going to take a little longer to calculate. But I swear, like if you have like poor detail, if you increase that number, it's going to take longer to render, but sometimes it's necessary if you want to get like the scatter to look like perfect, you know, go really scatter inside of the pores and wrinkles, right? So it's going to take a little bit longer, but let's compare those two after it's done. And then we're going to go to your question originally, but the reason I'm doing all this stuff, which is how to update everything without having to reassign and do all this stuff I just did, right? That was the whole point of doing this. So we're going to do something very soon, as soon as I get this little render done. I can hear my computer spinning. Okay, it's going to start soon. The hyperthread's kicking in. Yeah, that means it's subdividing this mesh that's already 60-something thousand polys, is subdividing 5 times before render time. So come on, you can do it. I think it did already. I think that was the whole point. That's why it was spinning. Oh, there you go. So let's try that. Well, I just stopped it, but now it's actually, okay, there you go. I actually interrupted it. Yeah, it's like, you're definitely not gonna see a lot right now because the detail is a little broad, but next week when you're doing the renders of the pores, I'm gonna do a comparison between level 3 and level 5, for example. You're definitely gonna see a ton of stuff rendering there. But the main point is that this displacement is working already. That's good. So let's do a test in here since we are pretty close to the end. So I have my model saved in there. So let's say now you're iterating in this model, right? And now you're gonna go to the next level. You're gonna like, you know, add some, you know, it's like interesting shape for the head and everything. And you're gonna create like a new model basically. Right? A weird guy like that. So that guy is going to be my new base mesh. As long as you match the resolution, which is like the subdivision level 2, and export it again to head 3 mid-res deformation. So that, let's pretend this one is your model after a bunch of iterations. And then you're concerned, like you're going back to Maya, it's like, oh man, I'm gonna have to plug all those things again. Well, how are you gonna do this? Instead of doing that, you just like import that mesh you just exported. This guy here, right? And then what you're gonna do, you're gonna get the new model selected, then you're gonna press Shift, click the original one that was in there, the old one, right? And then you're gonna go to your animation tab, and you can do like a deform blend shape. You can call it any name you want, AAA. Apply it. So now a tab was created in here. I have AAA. If I do this, right, just bring it the morph target all the way up. Now it conforms to the new mesh. So like, you know, whatever you did to your mesh, that's the new mesh you want to use. So basically that's what you do. Just slide it and that's it. Now, the thing that's going to happen is that if you want to delete, for example, the mesh that you just brought in, that's going to basically reverse everything because it's all part of the history of the object, right? So in order to bake in the stuff you just did to be able to delete the new mesh you just brought in, so you're going to have to select both of them. Not both, but I mean, like if you select just the original one should be fine. And then you go to Edit, Delete by Type, and then History. Don't do this like in this tab here that says Delete All by Type History, because that one can actually fuck up your scene if you're using XGen and things like that, because it's going to delete everything, all the nodes, right? Like all the history for everything. you're just gonna delete the history for the object itself. So you're gonna go just delete by type history or Alt-Shift-D. And then now, if I delete the newest model, this is baked right there, right? So in this case here, if I click in the model now, because it was a blend shape, all the stuff I set it up before, like shared SSS, the number of subdivisions, right? Gonna put back to 4. Everything is set up, and yeah, you don't need to do anything else.
That's cool. So just the blend shape and the delete history.
Yep, that's it.
That's awesome. Thank you, man.
Another way to do it is always, I mean, like I used to do this all the time, was with the transfer attributes. It's the same deal. You select one, select the other one, and then you can just basically like transfer vertex position. And to go really fast, you can use by UVs, right? You can do like transfer by UVs if the UVs that were never changed, or by topology. By UV, it goes super fast. By topology, it takes longer. It should take about like, maybe a minute or 2 to calculate at this resolution here. But the blend shape is always the most precise and the fastest one to do it,
That's great, because going through all of those settings all the time is quite annoying.
Oh, no. That's why we want to optimize, it's like as much as possible. Yeah. Like, we don't want to do that all the time for sure. We just try to undo this stuff here. And then, so now we are back here. Let's just delete this guy and we are back to this. So for this week, I think that's it, guys. I just want you guys like to have for this week, like a way to render your stuff if you never did any renders with Maya. And a way to actually, it's like transfer your sketch model to the base mesh. And this is just like a little bonus, I guess, because this was not planned, but it's cool that you have that as well for the weekend. If you want to try to export like some displacement, like just for tests and stuff, at least you're not stuck. You can do at least like a few renders, a few iterations and stuff. And probably going to be doing a little bit of the same I've been doing in the class, just with more time over the weekend, right? In terms of using different techniques or different tools and things like that, I'm going to always avoid doing that if you guys are not in front of me watching. So whatever I do this weekend, for example, is going to be just a continuation of the same thing I'm doing so far. So instead of like going HD geometry this weekend by myself, I'm going to wait until you guys are ready next week. And I'm going to keep working on this model, just like the primary and secondary forms for now, refine some stuff, And you see like the ears, for example, I didn't even change the topology. I was planning to actually open those holes in here to have them dangling. And then I decided, no, I'm probably going to fill up with some piece in there. So I'm just going to keep the topology the way it is. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. It's like, I'm sorry that things are not super smooth sometimes. It's like in production is the same deal. It's like you do the same thing for many years and you still get in trouble sometimes with little things. Like little bugs that you find. And yeah, if you guys work in this industry, you know the drill. Like it doesn't matter how long you work in this, there's always a little bug here and there you're gonna find. So thanks a lot, guys, and keep posting stuff. It's like I'm gonna be checking the Facebook group and replying eventually. Yeah, awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You too.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya. Bye. See you online.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.